Hi, I'm Michelle Gross. I'm going to be talking to you about my research proposal for SPED 780. I have chosen my topic as the effects of implementing explicitly taught SEL lessons on diverse students. When I talk about diverse students, meaning students from minority groups, students of low socioeconomic status, and students of disabilities. My research questions that I'm going to address are: how does teacher efficacy affect the implementation of SEL programs, and what effect does SEL curriculum have on diverse students? A little bit of background: SEL stands for emotional learning, and during my research, I started to see that there are 5 clusters of social emotional competencies that are important to the development of SEL skills. These competencies include self-management, as you can see on the wheel here, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. SEL has a short and long-term effects on student success, short-term being what they're going through right now, their daily lives, the current situation that they're in, the age that they're in right now, and those long-term effects being, as they get older, middle school, high school, and then adulthood and things like that, being able to manage their emotions, being able to be responsible, being able to communicate with others, and being able to be successful later on in life. So as I was doing my research, I realized there are tons of studies. There's an abundance of studies done out there on SEL programs, on the implementation of these programs. But what these studies really lacked was how specifically do they affect students from diverse backgrounds, students of disabilities, minorities, students of low socioeconomic status. So that's kind of the areas I really wanted to address, and especially given since that is quite the population that I work heavily with, is kind of the big question of how do these lessons affect these students? Can we help them out, and give them tips and tricks and things like that to help them develop these skills, because they come from backgrounds that they may lead them to these negative choices and these negative behaviors. And research shows that people who come from diverse backgrounds with hardships and things like that don't necessarily have the resources for mental health and have a harder time dealing with emotions and mental health and things. So the other part of it was teacher efficacy of SEL is linked to the effectiveness of the SEL implementation. So it was said that this teachers and pre-service teachers unfortunately often believe that students of minorities and students of diverse backgrounds won't succeed in school. They believe that they can't succeed in school given things that are working against them and forces that work against their background, their family, their things like that. And it was shown that it's because they weren't taught to be able to deal with and teach students who differ greatly from their own background and things like that, and differ from their own upbringing. So that was a kind of another part of it, that teachers need to be trained for this, that their efficacy affects the implementation of the effectiveness of these lessons. So my methodology, um, 25 to 25, 20 to 25 second grade students from Midwestern Elementary School are going to be my participants. The school is about 54% white, the other percent being a mix of like 28% Hispanic, about 9 to 8% is students that are Black. And then a couple of percentages are less than one is like Island Pacific Islander, and one's unspecified, and there is a small percent, about 9 or so, that are 2 or more races. So my design for my action research is going to be a mixed methods research design using both qualitative and quantitative research approaches. The intervention is going to include the second grade students are going to participate in 16 weeks of SEL lessons through the program of Second Step. Each of these lessons for these 16 weeks are going to be 4 lessons a week for 20 to 30 minutes a day. Some of the data collection I'm going to use is going to be a student survey, a teacher reflection survey, a teacher daily weekly reflections, and PBIS data. So the student survey is going to be taken in the beginning of this before the interventions and treatment is done, and then again after. It's kind of looking at how students feel about their classroom, how about other students, how they're aware of what they're feeling, what other students are feeling. So it'll be done in the beginning to see where they stand, and then again at the end to see if there are changes, both positive or negative. The other thing is going to be teacher self-reflection survey. This is kind of the teacher's way to reflect on their understanding of SEL, their instructional practices, and maybe kind of have a chance to reflect on how those things go together, how their instructional practices and their beliefs and their understanding of the SEL affects their implementation of the lessons. The other thing I'm going to ask teachers to do is to kind of do a daily/weekly reflection on the lessons. How did it go? What went well? What maybe didn't go well? What needs to be changed? What are some areas that maybe these students need to focus more on and need to kind of practice more in these lessons weekly? And then our PBIS data for my school, we're going to be using what we call our code data. So the school has blue codes and red codes, blue being codes for behaviors that are less severe. Excuse me. Sorry, less severe, such as minor disruptions or maybe shutdown. Student needs a break, it needs to kind of reset and come back. Where red codes are higher intensity behaviors that can harm to oneself or others, where a room evacuation would be needed. So this information will help me to determine, is there some area that students are struggling with? Is it, a certain time of day? Is there certain, lacking skills that need to be worked on a little bit more? And where are the gaps in these students that, what will they still need? What are they not, getting from these lessons, or what needs to be kind of stressed more in these lessons, maybe more practice, more role playing, things like that. So it allows you to kind of look back at this data that can be filled out by the classroom teacher. It can be filled out by specialists or any other adult in the building. So it's not just when they're in the classroom with me or, the teacher. It could be in a specialist area as well. Thank you.